Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with my weekly wrap-up. I'm going to be going over all the books that I read from the 18th to the 24th, and this should be a really quick wrap-up because I had a pretty crazy week of not getting a lot done. So I think I only have 5 books to go over, so it may be a quick wrap-up, but one book I will be gushing about, and I don't know, that could take longer. We'll see. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so this week was kind of tough because I actually got a really bad migraine on the weekend, on Sunday, and then I had to call in sick to work for 2 days. I was in bed for 2 days. I thought, oh, perfect time for me to read. I didn't read anything. It was really tough for me to read. It was one of those tough migraines. So it's been tough. Still had a migraine later in the week, so I wasn't that on top of it this week. But that's okay. This week had one of my most anticipated releases that I read, and it was a little bit longer. So I didn't want to finish it, which I'll get into it when I get to it. But that's the book I'm going to be gushing about. No surprise. I'm going to probably talk about it a while, even though I can't say much because I don't want to spoil things. Anyways, I'm being so vague. So it was just a tough week. I mean, literally, today's Sunday. I always film on Sundays. And I couldn't sleep the last 2 nights. It's just been a tough week. So I literally woke up at noon today, and I have to film 3 videos, and I was like, shit. So hopefully I can make this really quick because I have other videos to do. So let's just go ahead and dive quickly into the books that I read this week. I do think it was a really good week, even though I didn't read as much. I read some really good books this week. One big standout. So let's go ahead and start. The first book that I read was an ARC, and it was Falling Like Stars by Emma Scott. I've seen Emma Scott everywhere on Bookstagram, BookTube, and I've only really, when I looked her up, I realized I've only read one of her books, and it was kind of more of her fantasy almost type of ones, which was, kind of weird. So I have seen a lot of hype, so I think I kind of stayed away for the hype, which I do. I tend to get worried when an author is too hyped up. So I saw this art come up, and I was like, you know what? I want to try and get that because I want to try and give Emma Scott a read. So in this is actually a celebrity romance, but when in true Emma Scott fashion, not that I know, but from what I've seen, she does write more emotional romances. So in this, we have Zach and Rowan. And Rowan, it opens up in the beginning where she experiences a really tragic loss. And, I'm just going to say it, but her boyfriend, she was 16. He gets hit by a car. They were best friends. He was the boy next door. They were in love. And he went across the street because they lived next door to each other. And he ends up getting hit by a car when he's coming back to give her her sweater because she was cold. And she witnesses this, and it's just so traumatic to her, and she feels tremendous guilt. And so she kind of shuts down of ever finding love and actually going for what she wants. She wanted to be a costume designer in film and everything. And she was already doing stuff at this young age. And that was her dream. And she ends up just giving that up because she feels guilty that he will never achieve his dreams. He'll never fall in love. He'll never, So in this book, it deals a lot with grief and loss and guilt. And so those are heavy things in this book. Now, I think this comes 10 years later. She thinks she's around 26. She is actually a PA. She works in the film industry, but she's just a PA, even though she's really good. But she could be so much more, and that's kind of what you're taking out of this. She kind of has hookups with the bad boys. She doesn't want to be with a good guy because that's what her boyfriend was, and she doesn't think she deserves love. So we're dealing with all of that, and she happens to meet Zach, and he is the new it guy. He's been on a show that was a huge hit show, then went on to movies. You know, he's up for like Oscars. He's like a method actor, but he's like this amazing, nice, like not into like the whole Hollywood thing. And so she meets him on the set, and they kind of interact real quickly as like the PA. And she had happened to find this like jacuzzi on the set further away, and she ends up kind of going there every night as like her secluded area, even though she's not supposed to go over there. And he ended up following her because he was really intrigued by her, and he finds her in the jacuzzi. And so they end up having like this night of just like hanging out in the jacuzzi. Nothing inappropriate or spicy happens. They're just getting to know each other and talking, and they're like sharing this like one glass of wine together. And so they really get to know each other, and she really likes him, but she's scared of that. And so when things wrap up on this movie, he basically offers her a job. He's about to go to Alaska to film his new movie, and he offers her a job to go on that. And so she ends up going for it, and she goes out. And so you kind of have this like really in the middle of nowhere, secluded place in Alaska, and they start to hang out and connect again, and they kind of go out on a date. And so things kind of go from there. The problems that come in are kind of like the outside forces, but also her issues with not just thinking she doesn't want to be in love or deserve love, and never getting over her ex and her grief and ever dealing with it. And so he actually has gotten out of this toxic relationship with his co-star that he started out like his career in this TV, you know, show. And she's basically very obsessed with image and getting anywhere in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. And they had a pretty toxic relationship where she was verbally abusive, but also physically abusive with him. And so he's trying to get away from that, and she's still trying to latch on because she's very petty and like upset that he's a star and all these kinds of things. So she's a big complication in this. But the thing that I loved so much about this book was the therapy, because Rowan finally tries to get some help through being in a relationship with him and realizing she has a lot of issues and you know, it's holding her back in life, and she starts to go to therapy. And we actually have multiple scenes of dealing with the therapy, like her working through stuff, and I loved it because at first she goes to therapy. The therapist gives her a really good like thing to practice with, like, you know, kind of like a homework assignment, but a way of coping, you know, help with her. And so it really helps her. And so she thinks, okay, I'm good, I don't need it. No, she needs it. She has not dealt with her grief, and it ends up hitting her at a really big point where she needs to go back to therapy. And so you see her working through that and trying to become accepting of like what happened and know she's worth it. Sorry, I'm going on and on about this, but I just loved the therapy in this book, because so many times they're like, oh, therapy or mental health rep, but you never see the therapy. It's barely mentioned as like an afterthought. I think Liz Tom Ford does that, where it's like, oh, it's therapy, but like she never deals with it in the books. So I loved this. I could tell like Emma Scott had maybe had some experience with therapy, and I loved her note at the end of the book. And I don't know if she lost somebody recently. I have no idea, because I haven't looked into her, but I don't know. It felt very like a personal book for her. So I really, really loved this. I love the hero. He's very swoon-worthy, very cinnamon roll, sweet guy. And so I loved seeing Rowan's journey of like getting mentally well, you know, accepting love, accepting herself, and trying to go for what she wants to do now and live her life to the fullest. So I absolutely love this. I gave this one 5 stars, and I think 2.5 chilies. There's some spice in it, but honestly, it just was more than the spice to me. It was them coming together and growing as a couple, and her self like journey. So absolutely loved it, and I would definitely recommend this one for you. The next one I read, I had a lot of ARCs and ALCs this week, basically. I read another ARC, and this was Wreck Me by Bianca Borell. This is the second book in the Corrupt Legacy series. The first book I liked. I think I gave it like 4 stars. I thought it was interesting, but I freaking loved this one so much more. Now, I don't know if it'll be for everybody because it is kind of slow going in the beginning. It's told in like 2 parts, like kind of like a little bit in the past and then a couple years later. But in this world, we're basically learn about the family, and it's kind of like this secret society, almost feels mafia type-ish thing where they kind of control the town. They like own all the big businesses and they run everything, and they have this grandmother that's the patriarch of the family, or matriarch of the family. And they are like forced to do this initiation and like prove their loyalty to the family. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So in this book, we go back to like the beginning of the first book kind of. And this is with Abigail. And Abigail was in the first book too. You see her because she ends up being the girlfriend of the hero from the first one, but it's because their families forced them into this like basically going to be an arranged marriage, but they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and they have to be together, and he's forced to be with her. They like make him make the choice so that he could save his girlfriend. So there's a lot that goes into that. I would definitely recommend you read the first one before you read this one, because a lot of stuff is going on from that book. But in this, Abigail, you know, she is kind of forced into this relationship, but she's this beautiful, you know, like she's very smart, but like they don't want her to pursue anything that she wants to go after. She has to be the woman on his arm and a good image for the family, basically. So she actually has a run-in with this new guy in town because Dane is actually like one of the youngest F1 racers, but Formula One racers. And he's kind of forced to come to the school senior year, because he kind of is acting out. He does have bipolar disorder. It's not too bad, but he does get severely focused on things. He found out something bad about his dad and all this stuff that happened. So he actually kind of acted out, crashed the car, did like some street racing when he's not supposed to, since he's a Formula One racer. And so his parents basically tell him, no, it's not his real dad, but basically this guy raised him as his kid. You're going to go to the school for a year. You need to get your shit in order. Like, you're not going to be racing the Formula One racing till you get your shit together. So he's forced to go out there. He's kind of like the bad boy rebel, and he immediately sees Abigail, and he's fascinated. And so it kind of starts off enemies to lovers, but it doesn't last long because she's trying to push him away because she's very into him and attracted to him, but she knows she can't be with him because of the family. And so they basically start to get together, but it's a secret relationship because the family will find out your weaknesses, like they did with the first hero going after his girl. And she doesn't want them to go after Dane and use him as like her weakness. So it's a lot of secrets, you know, angsty. This is very angsty. So that's like the first part of the book, because something goes down where she has to kind of like make a big sacrifice and initiation thing to make sure Dane's safe. And he ends up leaving and going back to racing. And so it's a couple years later. He's a very successful racer, but he has never stopped thinking about Abigail, and he wants her back. And so he moves back into town to go to the college with her. And so he's making moves. One thing that I would tell you that I loved about this was she has this like kind of like this older house that was kind of run down, kind of like a mansion type of thing that she would always go to as her place. And this guy ends up buying that, renovating it, and moving in so that he could give her like this house. So it was very like notebookish, but I absolutely loved it. Dane really made this book for me because he is boy obsessed. He's bad boy, but sweet, and goes after what he wants. And he is just so into Abigail and will do anything for his woman. So I absolutely love this. I do want to bring up that there is some trigger warnings in this. Big one that I want to bring up is an eating disorder, because she does have a major eating disorder in the first part of this book. That she kind of got that from her parents pushing her to always look skinny and be perfect. And so there's some dealing with that. And there is some, I want to say one thing, but it'll kind of give things away. But I do have the trigger warnings listed in my Goodreads review if you want to check there. But there's some torture, branding, the eating disorder, mentions of suicide. So there is some dark stuff that it's dealing with, but honestly, this was just so like sweet. But it was very angsty because you're just dying for her to just like tell him the truth and be with him. But Dane does not give up, and he's super hot. So I ended up loving this one so much more than the first one. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars, and it is 3 chilies. Okay, so then I listened to an ALC. I listened to Out of Control by K Bromberg. This is the 4th book in the Full Throttle series, so I am coming in late. I think it's even like the last book, but you know, I've been trying to get these ALCs of authors that I haven't read before so that I could try new authors. So I went after this one. This is another racing book, so I've read some racing this week. But in this we have Oliver Rossi and Sofia Navarro. And what's interesting is I think I would have been better if I read the previous books, because you could tell that he is kind of like the bad boy villain of the previous books. And this is kind of like his redemption and his love story. So I think I would have loved it more if I would have read those, because I love a good redemption arc for a bad boy or a villain. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. He has just joined her, Sophia's brother's racing team, but they're kind of like enemies. He's the villain. He's the bad guy that everybody hates. And so he's very passionate. You get to learn why he is the way he is, though. And I really liked his character. But again, I didn't read the previous book, so I didn't hate him as much as some people probably already do. But he ends up running into Sophia at a music festival, and he becomes really intrigued by her. She's already been kind of watching him at her like brother's races and stuff, but her brother has warned her away from him and doesn't want her to have anything to do with this guy. And so she ends up kind of having run-ins with him, and they have a one-night stand. And so she thinks we're just leaving that there. And then they end up kind of keep having run-ins at the races, and he's really into her. He can't stop thinking about her, and he really wants her. And so she has to kind of keep it secret because of her family. I also liked her journey in this because she's like always have to do stuff for like the racing and the family. They're very like elite family. And so they kind of have this image they want from her, but she wants to open up her own like art studio or whatever. I can't remember but whatever. Sorry. But to show art, not like art studio, but like an art curator and all that kind of stuff. And her family didn't really want her to do that. And so she's kind of trying to pursue that goal. And in her secret relationship with Rossi, she really he pushes her to like stop being so selfless and do things for her. And so I really like that kind of growth. It was good. I just didn't blow me away. I really loved the narrators. Obviously, Teddy Hamilton narrated, which I thought was kind of interesting choice. I think they're like in Italy and stuff, if I'm remembering correctly. So I was like, Teddy Hamilton? But you know me, I fucking love Teddy Hamilton. And so I think that's another reason I really loved his characters, because Teddy Hamilton usually makes bad boys way more likable with the way he narrates. I don't know what it is. It's Teddy Hamilton. I love him. And then Stephanie K, I've never heard her, I don't think, before. She did narration too. And so I thought it was really well done. Although I wish it was duet narration, because a lot of times, like when the sex chapters happened, it was from Sophia's perspective. And I wanted to hear Teddy Hamilton do the dirty talk, but that's just me. So I ended up enjoying it. It was good. It wasn't like some amazing thing, but again, I probably should have read the previous ones before. And so I ended up giving that one 4 stars and 3 chilies. Okay, so on to the book that I'm probably going to gush about. Again, I may put a spoiler thing up once I start going into spoilers. I'm not going to go too deep into spoilers, but this is the 3rd book and final book in a trilogy, so I don't want to give things away. So I may put a spoiler tag for just a little bit of those kind of things. But what is the book? That is Heart of Frost and Scars by Pam Godwin. This is my most anticipated release. I have fallen in love with this trilogy. It is one of the best dark romances, best trilogies, best white shoes, It is everything. Pam Godwin did such a phenomenal job in this book and in this trilogy, because it is so dark and it takes you on this twisted journey, and there's lots of hints and clues that she threads through that you're trying to figure out things throughout the whole series. It's just phenomenal. Pam Godwin is always going to be my dark romance queen, but I mean, I think she's my favorite author. She is just so fantastic. She writes beautifully. She writes dark romance, but it's used not in like a gratuitous way. It's very impactful, but she'll push you past your limits. But it's like, you know, it's a journey, and she'll take you. I always trust the journey she takes me on, and that, you know, there's a lot of healing through like the dark stuff. So I just love Pam Godwin. I could gush about her forever. But if you don't know anything about this series, or if you haven't seen my previous videos, this is a trilogy. It's a very dark romance. Check your triggers. She has a lot listed. I honestly recommend going in blind if you are okay with triggers. If you're not, you know, if it's not going to be upsetting to you. I think she has a list where it's just some of the basic triggers, and then one where it's like, spoiler, it's like every single trigger you could have. But I went in blind. The first book was Hills of Shivers and Shadows, and it fucking blew me away. It's so dark. It's insane. I've never read anything like it. So in this, Frankie is married. She just found out she's pregnant, and she's married to this billionaire. They live in Alaska, and he does not want a baby, and they get in a huge fight. And so she's kind of planning on moving, like maybe going away, getting out, because she's so upset with him. He's supposed to come back and talk things out, and he's not. And so at that night, she ends up getting kidnapped by Denver, and he's a very mysterious, good-looking, kind of crazy guy, and he kidnaps her, and he takes her out to the Arctic of Alaska in the middle of nowhere, and that's where his 3 sons and him live. And so now she's forced in this situation of living with these three men that were his sons and him, and she's put through a lot. And so that's all I can really say, because I don't want to give things away. So I will say, if you are interested, if you want spoilers, I did do vlogs for the first 2 books. So I will try to link them down below or put them up here, because I just loved it. And that's another thing, is I'm going to bring up some of the stuff in this book that's kind of spoilery, but I'm not going to go too deep into it. But I am going to be posting a vlog later. I just want to give some time for this book to release, since it's like, you know, I don't want to spoil things for people. But I did vlog this one as well to kind of go over all my thoughts. It's going to be a long vlog. I think I have like over an hour of footage, because I could not stop talking about this book. So anyways, I'm going to put up the spoiler tag for just like a little bit to bring up some of the stuff that's going on in this book. Not too spoilery, but if you don't want to be hinted at where things kind of ended up in the last 2 books, I'm kind of bringing some stuff up here. So I'm going to put up the spoiler tag. I will take it down when I give like my rating and stuff. So spoilers a little bit on this. In the second book, you know, in the first book, she builds a relationship with the sons. Some people die in that book. You know, then there's a struggle in the second book for her and the sons to survive, because they're running out of food. They don't have heat. A lot of shit went down in the first book, where now it's a survival book. And it's also exploring her relationships with those sons. And then in this book, they have actually got free of the Arctic, of the Hills of Shivers and Shadows, which that's what they called that home out in the middle of nowhere. And they are back in civilization. The sons have never been. They've been through such trauma. The amount of shit that has gone on with these characters to get to this point. But now she's back, and then they have to contend with Monty, her husband, because her husband's been searching for her. He's had his own journey that you see in the second book, and he had ties to things. And see, I can't really say a lot because I don't want to totally spoil everything. But and he wants his wife back, but now she's in love with the sons, and he's got to like try and get her back. And so this kind of builds on the white shoes, and it's very angsty, and there's a lot going on because after everything that they went through, they also find out there's another danger, a stalker coming after her, and they have to figure out who this is. So that's as spoilery as I'm going to get. I'm going to take down the spoiler tag, but that's as spoiler as I'm going to get, but I don't want to go too deep into it because I want you guys to try and read this. This is the best trilogy I've ever read in my life. Best dark romance, best white shoes. So emotional. I cried multiple times. It shocked me. It put me through all the feels. It's insane. So if you do want spoilers, I will be having that vlog coming up soon. But needless to say, this is a 6-star book. It's 4.5 chilies. There's it's not a lot of sex in the third one. It's just there's a lot of sharing and kinky stuff going on. It honestly takes a while to get to certain things. So I just think, it was just fantastic. So I gave the first 2 5 stars because I wanted to see how I felt at the conclusion of the trilogy. And basically, I'm going back and I'm changing all those ratings to 6 stars because it is fucking fantastic. I highly recommend this book, this series. I honestly cannot stop talking about it. I can't stop thinking about it. When I was reading this book, it took me a few days because I had the migraine, and then I honestly couldn't put it down, but I didn't want to finish it because I didn't want to end this world that I was living in. It is so good. I mean, I went to bed, I was up till 12 reading it one night, and I had to get up for work, so I was like, okay, go to bed. And I sat there thinking about it, and I couldn't go to sleep for an hour. So it's something that has stuck with me, and I continue to talk about it. I will probably recommend this multiple times on this channel. So definitely highly recommend. Just make sure if you don't want to go in blind, check your triggers because there is a lot of dark stuff that happens in this book. Okay, so sorry. I knew I was going to talk a lot about that, but I love it so much. So the last book that I read was an ALC. It was A Fair Catch by Suzanne. And this is the 3rd book in the Vegas Aces playbook series. And these are very novella, episodic kind of things. I think there's 5 books in the series. So each of them live off in a cliffhanger. I didn't really love the first one. The second one I liked better. This one I enjoyed because we're finally getting to actual romance between the couple and falling in love and dealing with that. So in this, we have Travis and Victoria. I've gone over the other 2 in the previous wrap-ups. But in this, we have Travis. He is an NFL superstar. He basically found out he didn't find out. He knew he had a daughter. But her parents died. She's 10 years old. So he has to take her in. And he's basically been changing around his life to bring his daughter into his home. And so she's safe and all this kind of stuff. And so it's a learning process for him. Victoria, he had run-ins with. She turned him down at one point. And so it was a very animosity, they were enemies to lovers. It was a little over the top in the first book. By this point, she's been also helping out. She works at his daughter's school and helping her out with her IEP and reading issues. And so she's getting close to the daughter. And so they start to warm up to each other in the second book. And in this one, they are full on dating. They are falling in love with each other. It's going fast. And so he's really into her. He really wants to be with her. And she had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that wasn't great. So she was worried about getting involved with somebody. That ex-boyfriend jumps in here to make some drama happen. He wants her back, even though he was a horrible boyfriend. And so an altercation happens with him and Travis that could lead Travis into hot water. Maybe arrested, who knows. And so they end up coming to this agreement. He asked her to be his wife as kind of a PR thing too, because he needs to have a good, stable situation because another guy wants to take the daughter from him and just doing a money grab. And then now we have this possible charge against him from the ex-boyfriend. So they actually agree to do this arranged marriage. And she's going to move into his house and everything and help out with his daughter. So And she's also asked him to be like a date to her sister's wedding. That's like a destination wedding. So all that's going on in this. Again, these all leave off in cliffhangers, but that's kind of what it is with this. So I enjoyed this one more because it actually dealt with their romance. And Victoria started to grow on me because she was very bitchy and like over the top prickly heroine in the first couple. So I liked it a lot more on this one. So I did give this one 4 stars and then 2.5 chilies. And oh yeah, it's narrated by Lance Greenfield and Callie Dalton. So those are all the books that I read this week. It wasn't that much, but I had some really good reads. So I'm very excited. I hope you guys check out, you know, that Pam Godwin trilogy. I believe the 3rd book is releasing on August 26th. So I would definitely jump in and get reading on that. And my vlog will be coming soon, like within a couple weeks, hopefully. But thank you so much for watching this. You know, as always, I appreciate you. If you could remember to hit that subscribe button, like, leave me a comment down below. Let me know how your week was, or if you're interested in reading any of these. And I will see you guys on the next one.